Welcome to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. And now here's your host, Wade T. Lightheart.
What is Awesome Health? It's actually an acronym that stands for air, water, exercise, sunshine, optimizers, mental beliefs and attitudes, and education. These are the pillars of peak health, and my team and I have created a free 12-week course that you can use to transform. Each day, you'll get a written and video lesson delivered to your inbox. Everything is covered from the foundations of digestion to advanced alternative therapies few people know about. And again, it's 100% free. Just go to bioptimizers.com. That's bioptimizers.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Wade T. Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And today we're going to talk about some environmental toxins, what's common nowadays, and what you can do if you are exposed. We're also going to talk about the different approaches that are available to you for assessing and evaluating individual risk and exposures to environmental toxins. And today's guest is Wendie Trubow, who is a passionate person helping women optimize their health and lives as a functional medicine gynecologist. Through her struggles with mold and metal toxicity, very common elements, she's also had celiac disease and some other health issues. I think it was Hippocrates said that was the best doctors were those who had their own struggles because it developed empathy. Trubow has developed a deep sense of compassion and expertise for what her patients are facing. She is the co-author of Dirty Girl, Ditch the Toxins, Look Great, and Feel Freaking Amazing, and has been regularly featured in Mind, Body, Green, and Huffington Post. She is an accomplished speaker and previously had her own television show. She is on the faculty at A4M and a speaker for their conferences, along with other national societies. And she joins us today from Boston, Massachusetts, an area close to my home where I grew up in Canada. It's about 9 hours down the highway, at least if that's summer conditions, and it could be 2 days if it's winter conditions. Welcome to the show, Wendie.
Thanks, Wade. Great to be here.
So, Dirty Girl, that's usually an accusation that people don't want to have directed towards them, but you created a book around this. What is the book about and why did you write it?
The book is about how we are all being deluged with toxins, right? Have you ever walked into a store and been like, oh, it really smells like perfume in here? Or go into a construction zone and it smells like chemicals, bought a new car, it smells like something, bought some furniture, it off gases. So everywhere we go, we're being exposed to chemicals. And it was my experience and story with how I was so sick. And when I finally figured it out, I had my heavy metals report in front of me. I had my mycotoxins, which is the mold in my body that the toxins put out. And then I had my other environmental things like gasoline fumes and plastic, styrene, flame retardants, nail polish. I had all these toxins and I have all these reports in front of me and I'm like, oh my God, everything's positive. I'm such a dirty girl. And I said that to my husband and he's like, we're writing that book because, I'm in functional medicine. I am the poster child for healthy living. I don't drink alcohol. I don't eat sugar. I don't eat processed carbs. I eat organic. I exercise. I do everything right, except I was so sick. And so we wrote the book as a roadmap so that what happened to me doesn't happen to you, because we're all getting exposed to, if you live on this earth, you're getting exposed.
I know there's a lot of people in the industry today who are writing about mold toxicity. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a big issue because there is a tremendous amount of the homes in America today that are filled with mold. Mm-hmm. Can you explain to our listeners the types of mold they might be exposed to, or what mold is and what it does in the body, and why this is something people need to pay attention to in and around their health profile, because it's a lot more than eating right and going for exercise. Mold can impair the benefits of just about anything. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, it's actually really serious, Wade. So, and I don't think it gets the attention that it deserves. So let's back up. 1 out of every 2 buildings in America, in North America, has had water damage. So that means if your home wasn't water damaged, your school, your work, your car, your dorm, your boarding school, there's a million places you go every day, week, month, year. And if half of them have had water damage, you've gotten exposed, because when the water damage happens, mold grows. When mold grows, it makes toxins. And those toxins, when you said, what does it do? I'm thinking to myself, what doesn't it do? When you get exposed to mold, it does everything. So it can impair your brain. It can give you rashes on your skin. It can give you respiratory issues. It can give you eczema, psoriasis, acne. It can mess up your gut. And by the way, a lot of the toxins do this, not just mold. It's corrosive to the gut. So it can make your gut irritable. It can give you diarrhea. It can make you bloated. It can make your fertility impaired. It can have your immune system be dysfunctional. It's a risk factor for cancer. Like it's everything. And it's so, you can't see it. Most of the time, people aren't paying attention to smelling it.
There is a moldy smell, though. There is a moldy smell. And I would say, go up into the attic of a barn or into a basement of an older house or whatever, and there's a certain distinct smell, and your body goes, "Ooh, that's I don't want that smell." That's the smell of mold.
Before we started recording, I mentioned to you that I had a mold exposure over the summer, and it wasn't my first one. I knew within 3 steps of walking into that house that it was moldy. We happened to have driven 2 hours to get to this house, so I was like, I really need to pee. So I go in, I use the bathroom. I'm like, there's mold here. I use the bathroom and I leave. So what, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, maybe? And I leave the house. And my husband and my oldest child, and we were looking at the house. We didn't buy the house. We were looking at buying it. And I was like, there's mold here. We're not buying it. Everyone who went to look at the house was sick. And we actually didn't buy the house because I was like, we can't buy a house with mold. But it's everywhere. And it is, if you're paying attention to it, you can smell it. But not everyone has the sort of nose for it. My husband's like, I don't smell anything. And I was like, I smell it. So at first he thought I was crazy, and then he got sick. So he knew he wasn't crazy.
Well, here's another thing that people are using in a nefarious way unconsciously, and that they're using these plug-in devices that are producing mustard gas. And this mustard gas technology is disabling our awareness of the senses that are suboptimal for our health. And so a lot of these little devices that are out there in the world, people don't realize that it's not that they're improving the scent of the room, it's disabling our sensory capabilities and are actually a toxin themselves.
Yes.
And a lot of people are using it. It's like, what does a person do to find out if they have mold in their house? And then, or, something they were buying or that sort of stuff. And can they get rid of it?
Yes. Let's answer that first. Can you get rid of it? Yes. Is it easy, fun, or cheap? No. So there's a lot of ways you can test. You can go to Home Depot and get mold testing kits. They're like $15 for one kit. And I usually say to people, put one in every room for $15. Just put one in every room so that you know. And you send it off and they'll give you a report whether anything grew. Okay. That's one way. I'm not a big DIY human. I don't have a lot of brain space. So I hired someone who came and evaluated the air and the mold and the quality and did everything and did all the rooms and gave me a report. And at which point I was like, we had mold in our bathroom. We didn't have mold in our basement, which is amazing. But you can test. So you test your home, you test your work. I had a patient whose car was moldy. So any car that's been in a flood zone and been submerged, that car's moldy. So you don't want to be in it. So you can do things about it. Once you know what you're treating, then you take binders. And the nice thing is, we have binders that will bind to all the strains of mycotoxin. So it's not like you have to take 30 different supplements. It's just that you have to take them every day because it takes a while to pull it out of you. So it is treatable. And people do get a lot better, especially people who say, oh, I can't lose a pound. I do everything right. I can't lose a pound. And I'm like, well, you're eating properly. You're moving your body. You're sleeping. You're not a stress ball. So yeah, now that we've done all we can for your lifestyle, we're going to look at toxins because they're sitting in your fat. They're all fat soluble. So if you can't properly make them go from fat soluble to water soluble and inert, you're going to store them in your fat. And that's when people say, oh, I'm gaining weight and I can't do anything about it.
I had this theory many years ago, and it derived out of my experience in bodybuilding. So when you're bodybuilding, you're trying to get to what I would say super levels of low body fat, sub-healthy for sure. And inside of that, as different as you dive deep into your fat stores, you would experience sensations or cravings for food that you ate before. You might experience a various emotions because of toxins being dumped into the system. And this was commensurate with everyone. And I realized that, there's a calorie model around fat storage, but it would seem to me that if the body's detoxification pathways, the pathways as well as the liver, couldn't handle a toxin, a convenient way would be to store it in a fat molecule, which is not that metabolically active, and keep it there until it had its capacity. So based on that very backyard kind of allegory, would you say that people who may be highly toxic, one of the reasons that they're losing body fat they're not able to is because if they were to lose that body fat, they would overwhelm their detoxification pathway. So it's actually a protection mechanism over and above maybe what people want cosmetically.
Yeah, 100%. You said it perfectly, because you won't get rid of a pound until the drainage pathways are actively working. Otherwise, it will make you sick. You totally nailed it. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So then there's the aspect of genetics. So, recently, we released a book called The Ultimate Nutrition Bible, and it talks about how genetics. And so when you start evaluating people's genetics, for example, I have suboptimal detoxification pathways in my genes. So therefore I have
is this like a detox meaning, hi, I'm Wendie and I have suboptimal detox?
Yeah. Well, I always like to look at their strengths within your genetics and weaknesses. Like, for example, I do really good at managing my neurochemistry. Like, I just kind of break down the neurochemicals at appropriate speed and rebuild them at appropriate speed. So my resistance to, say, PTSD would be really high than someone that doesn't have that. When it comes to detoxification pathways, part of my regimen is understanding this, suboptimal gene. I go, okay, well, I can spend a little bit more time on ensuring my hydration levels are really good, that I like rebounding, and I like the HOCAT detoxification sauna. I like regular saunas. I do fasting on a weekly basis. I have a day where I set aside a fasting just to give my body clearance. And I notice that if I don't do those things, my weight tends to go up even without a calorie increase. It's like all of a sudden I'm just kind of bloated and puffy. And I'm going, oh, it's because I'm not detoxifying, right? What does this person do that's listening to this podcast if they're one of those people that are stuck because of toxicity? What do you identify a strategy in Dirty Girl of what a person does?
Yeah, what we do in the book, every chapter has top hot tips and action items to take. So there's things you can do on your own. And then there's things where I say, okay, if you reach the threshold and you've done everything right and nothing's budging, you probably need some divine intervention. Like, you need to see a functional medicine provider who's going to test you, give you the data, give you the specific action items so that you can move. But there's a lot of agency that you have before you need to pay someone else to give you guidance. So you've nailed a lot of it. You make sure that you're eating food that your body likes. So it's not just what you like, it's what likes you back, right? It's a two-way street. Get enough sleep. Most of us are chronically underslept. So, and we're proud of it. We're like, oh, I only slept for 5 hours. I'm like, dude, that is not enough. Your body needs time to drain. Your brain needs time to drain the chemicals in it. So you need to spend time in bed, asleep, deep sleep. So you need to get enough sleep. You need to get sweaty. So you need to move your body. You need to de-stress. And then, so that's what I'll call the foundational behaviors. And then the next level, which still doesn't require a person to guide you, is if you want to get really sweaty, go in the sauna, preferably near, mid, far infrared. So in a sunlight and sauna or something else, it's all the levels to get deep into the cells. But if all you have access to is a regular sauna that's not infrared, it's better than not doing any sauna, right? So don't get stuck on perfect.
Yes.
Any behavior is better than perfection, right? And then nothing. So don't get stuck on the perfection rat wheel. So saunas, Epsom salt soaks. I have a lot of people who are like, I don't have a bath. I said, okay, you don't have to have a bath, but you have a sink. Put your feet in the sink and put the Epsom salt in and sit there. And so do that every night. That will work. Or take a whole body Epsom salt bath if you have a bath. You can do dry brushing. You can do Epsom salt float tanks. You can do other things like, I call it the squishy stuff, acupuncture, Reiki, massage, lymphatic drainage. You can't necessarily test it, but these are all impactful behaviors. The most impactful behavior that I tell people to take that nobody likes, okay, wait, just to warn you, nobody likes this. Don't drink alcohol. Why? Like, why would I say that to people?
Tell us why, because I don't drink alcohol either.
Oh, I knew I liked you. Okay. So it's because alcohol is such a clear and present danger for your liver. And by the way, we haven't talked about the pathways, but your liver is responsible for doing all of this detox. And so when your liver gets alcohol, it's like all hands on deck. You cannot do anything except deal with the alcohol. It's a clear and present danger to your life. So you're going to deal with processing alcohol. But in the meantime, you're not going to deal with processing the hormones, processing the fat-soluble toxins, processing the forever chemicals, the styrene, phthalates, whatever it is. You're not going to process any of that because you're busy, right? It's like you're just busy. You don't have time to deal with it if you're drinking alcohol because it's so important to deal with the alcohol. You deal with that preferentially over anything else. Okay.
It's really powerful. And going back to the mold situation, I know some people, when they get exposed, they'll bring in ozone machines into the house to try and destroy. What's your opinion of ozone machines? Of course, there's some dangers around ozone machines that people need to talk about. I'll tell a personal story about it, but what's your opinion on that?
So I'm in Massachusetts, and the board of registration looks very unfavorably on IV ozone, so we don't do it. So as a result, I'm like kind of not that trained in it, but generally ozone's fantastic. I went to buy a machine. I was like, oh, I'll buy a machine. I'm one of those people that advertisers love because I'm like, oh, that looks great. I'll buy that. Yeah. I'm not that person, right? I'm like, oh, I'll sign me up. It sounds great. I'm always up for trying a new technology. Okay. And then I went to actually check out, and it was $1,300 for the machine. That caught my attention. $150, $200 wouldn't catch my attention necessarily, but $1,200 caught my attention. I was like, oh, that's a little more money than I wanted to spend just to try out a new technology, So I think they're fantastic. I don't think anything, too much of anything can be bad for you, but I'm interested in hearing your story because I don't use it that often and I don't even recommend it because I'm not that well trained on it.
Well, I had a friend and, we rented yes. He's still a friend of mine, but we rented a house together when I first moved to Los Angeles, and it felt like there may be mold in some of the rooms. So we bought a portable ozone machine, and then we put it in each room, and then we ran the ozone machine and, for a day and stayed out of the room. But when I was running it in one of the rooms, I had forgotten that we was running the ozone machine. And I got onto a phone conversation for an extended period of time while I was in the ozonated room. And woke up like that night. I went to bed. And I was like, God, I'm really breathing heavily. Like what's going on? And hyper exposure to ozone was not very good for my lungs. And it took me about 2 or 3 days to recover from ozone damage. So if you are using an ozone machine to take out mold, try and get a professional to do it. Don't be like amateur hour like I did, and definitely don't be in the room at the same time. That being said, I do now use a HOCAT machine, which is a capsule which first it puts CO2 in the air for about 3 minutes. You sit in it, and then you have a high steam rate, which you can adjust the temperature up to 50 degrees Celsius. And it steams you with ozone, and you can increase the percentage of ozone. And then it's got like PEMF and frequencies and lights and everything. And it's I think the best detoxification machine I've ever used. And, once or twice a week, I think really makes a difference in me, both visually and how I feel inside. I have a feeling of being clean inside. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about why I'm saying that is I want to talk about Dirty Girl for a little bit, and the feeling of like the internal feeling of being toxified or intoxicated, not with alcohol, but with toxins, versus what it's like. What does it feel like when you have removed these from the body? So maybe you can describe kind of like what people report as both states, like when you're totally intoxicated, and then when somebody maybe goes and applies what's in Dirty Girl and then gets to the other side. Can you contrast those two states?
The Bioptimizer mission is to help more of the world fix their digestion at a core level. The truth is, your digestion is only as good as your enzyme levels. Imagine trying to build a house with a tree. It's impossible. You need to chop the tree down into small pieces. Similarly, in order for your food to be used by your body, it must be broken down into a bioavailable form. And that's what enzymes do, converting protein into amino acids, fats into specific fatty acids, and carbohydrates into usable energy units. We start out with an abundance of enzymes, and that's why kids can digest just about anything really quickly. The thing is cooking food kills enzymes, as they cannot survive at temperatures above 118 degrees. So years of this ends up depleting our bodies and leads to weak digestion. Taking digestive enzymes like masszymes, which has an incredibly high level of protease for digesting protein, as well as other critical enzymes like lipase, amylase, and others, is a total game changer. Suddenly, you strengthen your digestion, eliminate gas and bloating, boost metabolism, and multiply your energy. Most importantly, you fix your digestion at a core level. To get started with Masszymes and to save 10% on your first order, go to masszymes.com. That's MASSZYMES.com and use the code MASS10, MASS10.
I definitely can, Wade, but I think we want to start first with most people don't wake up on a Tuesday and all of a sudden realize that they're really bad. So health is not.
I do that on a Monday.
You may do it on a Monday, but so health isn't a straight line where you're amazing and then bam, you have something. Sometimes that'll happen for people. They'll have some kind of inciting event and their health takes a really big downturn. But normally, how it goes is you're at your I'll call it your childhood level. And then, you get a little bit of something and a little bit of something and a little bit of something. And then you enter the workforce. And by the time you enter the workforce, you don't realize that you're worse than you were back here. It's just been this sort of gradual, slow change. And then that keeps happening. And then someone calls you to attention and you go, oh, I'm actually way down here now when you think about who I'm meant to be. But on that way down, we often are like, oh, I'm just getting older. I haven't slept enough. I'm stressed. I didn't eat well this week, or my genetics are bad, or everyone in my family has this, or I'm, again, just getting older, which is what we say to ourselves a lot.
The rationalizing.
Yeah, we excuse it.
And but kind of like aging, right? It's like this slow, it's like a glacier sliding down the mountain. It's like this imperceptible movement, but we have these earmarks. Like we look in the mirror and it's like, oh, where'd those wrinkles come from? Or you get a picture at, your cousin's wedding and you're like, oh, I don't really like how I look in that picture. Or you try to put your pants on one day and it's like, you bust the button off it and you're like, oh my God, what's going on?
I don't know how that happened.
Right? Exactly.
So when you talk about how should people, how do people know? Part of it is you just have to wake up and go, oh, everything I'm experiencing is not. So here's what I'm going to say. You don't get sick because you get old. You get sick because as you get old, you get lots more toxins. And those toxins make you sick. You essentially override your body's ability to get rid of them. So as you go through life, you get diabetes and you're like, oh, well, everyone in my family has diabetes. You get high cholesterol. Everyone has high cholesterol. You gain some weight on your midsection. Well, I'm not as young as I used to be. All these things that we excuse have underlying causes and underlying toxins associated with them, and they're a function of exposure. So when you talk about, how will people know? Part of it is you just have to wake up, and not even wake up. You have to stop excusing your symptoms and recognize that they're a function of toxic exposure, and there's something to do about it. So I've already forgotten the question. I apologize, because I wanted to make sure that people understand that health isn't like flicking a switch. Health is often that glacier slide. And by the time you get to the bottom, you can't remember how you felt.
Yeah, the mass march to mediocrity, I call it. We were talking about that feeling of when you do wake up and what you feel like inside versus what you feel like if you start applying the detoxification strategies outlined in Dirty Girl and what you can do.
Thank you. Sorry, I got totally sidetracked. So
no, not really. We just haven't finished it. We've kind of slid down the hill of life into this toxic valley, and we've got to climb out to the Halcyon mountains of super health and vitality and the fresh air of a mountain pass. What does it feel like when you maybe go through the transitionary period, and then ultimately, what does it feel like afterwards?
Okay, so we've slid down the glacier, and now something causes us to recognize we're not okay.
Right.
I was sick as a dog when I realized I was not okay. Right, I was really sick. So
what were some of the symptoms that you were experiencing?
Yeah, my felt experience of daily life sucked. My energy was terrible. My hair, half the hair on my head fell out. My thyroid was off. My brain was not working. I had gained, let's see, I was about 13, 14 pounds heavier than I am now. And I had gotten my license renewed right when I was at the peak. And so I have this memorialized picture of how I looked. I was like, every time I see it, I'm like, I look terrible. I looked terrible.
The old license, right? There's no escaping the license picture. Does anybody have a good license picture?
I had a good license picture. And then I had this taken at the peak of feeling terrible. And I was like, oh man. Okay. I also had terrible perimenopausal issues, hot flashes, night sweats. I was a mess. My gut was a mess. I was messy. So, okay. So you recognize that you're not good. And then I went through all of this protocols. Now, when you're in these protocols, sometimes things get worse before they get better. It's not like you wake up and you go, oh, so amazing. You go, oh, I'm really tired, man. It's hard work to detox. It's hard work on your body to detox. So doing these protocols is challenging. So it's not all like fame and fortune. It's like, it's a lot of drudgery, right? Like, okay, I'm going to get up again and do the same thing I did yesterday, right? Binders, things that bind to toxins, binders that bind to mycotoxins, sweating, sauna. I did sauna 7 nights a week for almost 2 years in a row.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. Right. Like that is the magic of detox. It's consistency. So, okay. So I do my first detox protocol for the metals. I feel like I've been run over by a truck. I'm like, I can barely function. I'm not doing well. I'm going to bed at 8 o'clock every night. My kids go to bed at 8 o'clock. I'm going to bed with my kids. I'm like, go to bed so I can go to bed. And about 6 weeks into the program, I woke up. I was like, oh, I said to my husband, I think I got rid of my metals because I feel great. No, I just got like no longer tanked from the treatment. They were even higher than they've ever been, but I had woken up the detox mechanisms. So how you can feel is fatigued and overwhelmed and foggy and irritable gut. You can feel kind of cruddy as you're moving things, but then you get to the other side. Now you fast forward to, okay, I've gotten rid of the lead. My mercury is 80% down. The mycotoxins went from 5 strains to 1. The environmental toxins are 80% down. And now, how do I feel compared to that? So much better, right? I lost the weight. My brain's working. My hair is growing back. My gut's no longer messy. My perimenopause is manageable. I'm actually postmenopausal at this point. So I now have the felt experience like life is good. Yeah. So in a way that I didn't have because it was that glacier slide. I didn't have that experience of feeling freaking amazing. And now I do. So,
we talked about mold, but what are some of the most common inflammatory toxins that are pervasive inside of people's homes?
I mean, let me count the ways. Okay.
Yeah, fire away.
Air fresheners. They use plastic technology to keep that scent around. So you're being exposed to endocrine disrupting chemicals.
I got a confession on this. This is really interesting. This is a family joke at our house. We have a Christmas decoration from like the 70s given to us by our grandmother. It's a little tree that's like a pine tree. Mm-hmm. And we put it in the Christmas presents. It still smells like pine. It's 50 years old and it still smells as pine. And I look at that thing and I'm like, I would love to take this to the lab to see how they could create a scent that lasts 50 years. It's amazing. Anyways,
nothing good.
I don't know why that came up, but it just reminded me of that scent that a lot of people say, oh, smell fresh and clean. No, it's smell toxic and deadly.
Yes, it's chemicals. Okay, so the way you scent your house, do you wear shoes in your house? Because when you wear shoes in your house, you take all those chemicals that you got from the bottom of your shoes and you smear them all over your floors. It brings in dirt, it brings in heavy metals, it brings in mycotoxins, it brings in chemicals, it brings in pesticides. So don't wear shoes in your house. That's an easy one. So we've got 2 so far. Don't light the candles or the plug-in things, and don't wear shoes in your house. Yep. But then you decide you're going to do a weekend warrior project, and you're going to dismantle the room, which was built before 1978, so you get a lead exposure, and then you're going to paint the room, and you just go to Sherwin-Williams or Home Depot and or Benmore, and you get paint, and you don't think about what's in the paint. But the paint has volatile organic compounds, VOCs. Those are carcinogens. They're nasty for you, and they off-gas, and they take a while to off-gas once they're in. Mm-hmm. So that's another way. But then you clean your house with these amazing products that make your house smell fresh and clean, like you said, except they're full of chemicals. So you want to watch what you're cleaning your house with. And then a lot of people use dryer sheets and chemicals to bleaching the towel. I have to tell you, I love the smell of a bleached towel. It's really toxic for you, but I still love the smell. Okay. Guilty pleasure. I love the smell, but I don't use bleach any longer because it's super toxic for you. It's an endocrine disruptor. Then there's the air quality. If you use a gas stove and you don't vent it, that's the biggest thing. My family knows that if they turn on the gas stove, we have a gas stove. If they turn it on, they better turn the fan on. Because I come home and it's not on, I go ballistic because you're getting all these chemicals from the gasoline, the burning of the gas, the natural gas. So that'll impact the air quality, the water quality, your the bed that you bought. There's flame retardants in the bed. So unless you specifically buy a bed with no flame retardants, your bed has flame retardants. Should I keep going?
Yes, I'm loving this. Keep going.
Okay. Dry clean clothes. If you dry clean your clothes, that's formaldehyde. And I was so excited, Wade. We drove by this dry cleaner and it said all natural, non-toxic. So I was like, cool. So I give him a call. I literally called him. He must have thought I was some crazy woman. I called him. I said, what do you use to clean your clothes with in the dry cleaning process? And he rattled off this long thing. I was like, okay, can you spell that for me? And he did. And then I looked it up and he was so proud that what he was using was clean. And I said to him, it's formaldehyde. You're just using a different form of formaldehyde. It's like BPA, BPC. They got rid of BPA, but there's BPC. It's the same. It's basically like just to go way far afield, there's a product that one fast food restaurant sells that is one molecule different from a yoga mat. And they sell it as food. So to sort of tie that with a bow, basically, just because they've changed it a little bit, it's still toxic for you. There's just not as much data to show that it's so toxic for you. I'm
envisioning yoga mat burgers.
Basically, it's one molecule different from a yoga mat. And in fact, we bought burgers from both of the 2 big chains who shall remain nameless. We bought burgers from them in 2012. So 11 years ago, we bought them. We put them in, those baseball, and when you have baseball
like a
trophy things. So we put it in the baseball trophy thing, and those hamburgers look like they did the day we bought them 11 years ago. They haven't rotted, decomposed, they're not moldy, but the bugs and the animal, nothing has eaten it. So I always say, like, if the bacteria won't eat it, it is not food.
Think about that. Yeah. And a lot of people don't recognize that we live in a symbiotic relationship with our bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't have bacteria, we're dead. We
Right.
can't feed ourselves. We feed the bacteria and they feed us. And yeah, if bacteria doesn't eat something, or I always find it entertaining if I'll see people throw out kind of like the factory processed chemical bread, and you'll see the seagulls or the pigeons kind of look at it and then walk away. Like, I'm not eating that.
Like, if the seagull won't eat it, it is not food.
Yeah, a seagull or a pigeon won't eat this food. Like the intelligence of a seagull or a pigeon says, don't eat this. But in our infinite wisdom, thanks to modern day marketing, we think it's a treat.
Yeah. So when you're looking at the ways we're exposed, it just goes on and on. So dry cleaning your clothes, nasty. The food you put in your mouth. What did you put on your hair to do your hair? Did you use something to dye your hair, to style your hair? Did you use something on your face? You're male. I'm female. By the time I sit down for my day, I'm exposed to anywhere from 150 to 300 chemicals because of what I use. Now, I've decreased that because I use clean, certified brands. So I don't use anything on my face that's not. But, you can see how in the pursuit of beauty, in the pursuit of anti-aging, in the pursuit of wanting to look good, wanting your hair to not be frizzy, that there'd be a lot of temptations to dive in. So it's pretty much pervasive, Wade. Everywhere you go, there's something making you sick. Buy a new car. There's 10,000 chemicals right there for you. That new car smell, super toxic.
This is a fascinating topic, and one, though, that people can get hyper fearful and start walking around in a hazmat suit and a gas mask and becoming kind of like the toxic police. How do you balance being aware of these toxins, encouraging a detoxification program on a regular basis, so on a consistent basis that you're using, yet not falling into becoming a hazmat wearing shut-in
I think this is the life cycle kind of like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's cycles of grieving, or you go through. So I think it's kind of like that, right?
That'd be a good model. The stages of detoxification, like the psychological stages of detoxification.
Yes. Okay. So stage 1, you are nuts. You look at everything. You stay up at night thinking about it. You clean out all your drawers, your pantry. You go crazy. You do a full-on clean out. You are nuts. And your family's like, do you think you're taking this a little too far? You're like, no, toxins are everywhere. Stage 1. Stage 2, you feel like you've kind of mastered it. You're like, yeah, okay, I've done okay. But in between stage 1 and stage 2, you're super anxious and everything makes you crazy and you got to look at everything. Mm-hmm. And then you feel a little bit cocky, and then you get your data and you realize that you're never getting away from this. And so you take a deep breath and you spend some time in depression. So, okay, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and I, we both have depression in our stages. And then you get to the stage where you feel like, you know what, I'm doing my best. I'm proud of the work I do. Look at how far I've come. I've cleaned up 80 to 90%. And here's the most important thing. Perfection is not the goal. Mm-hmm. Improvement is the goal. Mm-hmm. And as long as you're continuing to make improvement and be in the game, don't quit the game. If you quit the game, you lose the game.
Right.
Okay. But so the 4 stages, but it's important just to stay in the game and remember that you're human and have some compassion for yourself. I have screwed this up. Wait, okay. I am the poster child for detoxifying your life, but it's a misnomer. You're not going to detoxify. You're going to low toxify. So I'm so excited. I'm in the early stages of my toxin recovery, right? And I see this ad. Remember, I'm the one who marketers love because I'm enrollable. And I see this ad for a scent-free laundry detergent that comes, it's scent free. It supposedly doesn't have any chemicals, and it comes in a cardboard box. So I no longer have these big plastic jugs that I'm contributing. And I have 4 children. They go through a lot of laundry. So when I bought this thing, I bought a 4-month supply on auto ship. I didn't think about it again. It comes, I'm so happy. It doesn't smell like anything, blah, blah, blah. We get our second auto ship. And then I go, I never looked that up. I use Environmental Working Group, ewg.org, or Think Dirty, or Yucca. Those are all 3 apps that you can use. I never looked it up. So then I go and I look it up, and it's not well rated. It's not like, oh, you did a reasonable job. It's like, no, you didn't really do a good job. And I'm like, right. So I have a coach and a business coach. And so I tell my coach, oh my God, I screwed it up. Now, this underscores how much pressure we put on ourselves, because I have this pressure to be perfect and not screw it up, because I'm supposed to be the ringleader and provide the path for everyone else to walk on, right? And I said to her, I can't believe I screwed this up. She goes, I can, because you're human. So that's the 5th stage, is to remember that you're human and have compassion for the fact that you're going to screw it up. And she said, it's a great story. Now you can tell the story. I was like, oh, it is a good story, because we're all human. And you're all going to make a mistake in some way. So have a little laugh and don't throw it out. When you figure out that you screwed it up, use it up and level up, right? It's not going to move the needle.
So it'd be fair to say that you essentially are looking at a 2-pronged approach to toxins. One, start removing the inflammatory agents out of your environment, your lifestyle. And second, practice integrating detoxification program internally. In other words, with your process. Based on your experience, where would you say, or what are the maybe 3 to 5 things maximum that are the biggest levers in that equation, both on the removing toxins from the system and then the things that person can do themselves to kind of increase their capacity to tolerate toxins?
None of it is sexy or exciting.
Oh, but it is to us toxic.
I know, to us it is, right?
Yeah.
So,
hello, I'm in TA. My name's Wade, and I'm a TA.
so think about it. When you're stressed, you shut down detox. So managing your stress is extremely impactful.
How do you manage stress, by the way? Can you outsource it?
I'm hoping to. No, I mean, you can, right? If you use an app, you're outsourcing. If you use an app for meditation, you're outsourcing it. Let someone else do the thinking for you in the meditation and just breathe. So stress reduction, can't really outsource it, but you can set it up for success. Sleep. If you don't sleep, you're not going to detox. So get sleeping. Don't drink alcohol, because you shut your detox down, and it leads directly to leaky gut. It messes up the liver. It messes up the adrenals. Like I call it the holy triad of your adrenals, your liver, and your gut. And any one of those can throw the system off. So you want to honor what it needs and not throw it off. So don't drink alcohol. So we have de-stress. And then people are always like, oh, I drink alcohol so I can de-stress. I'm like, but it's not having that effect. It's actually having the opposite effect. You just don't care as much. So
right. It's shutting off the care program.
Yeah. So don't drink alcohol, manage your stress, sweat, sleep, don't drink alcohol. Do those 4 things. And that sets 80% of the stage. And then there's the cool stuff like the sauna, the Epsom salt soaks, your machine, I forget the name of.
Yeah, the HOCAP machine.
Okay. So there's all kinds of cool things. You can take binders, you can do IVs, you can do a ton of things. But at the basis of it, you can eat your way to health. It's going to take a little bit longer if you only use food, but you can use food as medicine. Think about it. You can eat cilantro every day and parsley every day. You can eat a wide range of things that contain B vitamins and magnesium and acetyl. You can eat your way to health. All of the spicy heat, the curcumin, the turmeric, the ginger, all of those, garlic, they all promote detox and health. So you really can eat your way to health. It takes a while, right? Because you didn't get here overnight. You're not going to get back there overnight. Right. But those are the platforms. And that's why I say it's not that sexy, because it's like, okay, have some Indian or Asian food, right? Like Just not with gluten and not highly processed. You eat food that looks like food.
Mhm. Powerful. What are some other things that you touch on in Dirty Girl that we haven't covered in the podcast?
I think it really drills into how do you clean up all the different areas, because 10 chapters, right? So there's 10 chapters and we go through in each chapter, what are you going to focus on? What we just talked about was the 10th chapter, which is all of the foundational things that you need to do. But there's how do you clean up your beauty products? What are you doing about makeup? What are you doing about those scents? What are you doing about your hormones? There's just so many things to look at. And I think the most important thing to remember is you make one change. Make one change when you can. Sustain it. Make another change. Keep moving forward and don't quit. This is the most important thing: is don't quit this game, because you're never gonna win from the standpoint of be toxin free, but you'll win because if you essentially lower your body's burden, it will be able to do its work. Right now, it just can't you can't get your work done. You're so pulled in a million directions. If you can take away the noise, your body will be able to detox. So we talk about all these different things in the book. And it's really about a whole life fix. Toxic people. Do you have toxic? I have people in my life I don't hang out with who I'm related to.
Yeah.
Because they're not empowering, right? When I hang out with them, I'm not like lit up and inspired. I'm not my best self. So I'd really work on hanging out with people who make me my best self. And not hanging out with people who are toxic. That's a really important thing. And if you get nothing from this podcast except to get rid of the toxic people in your life, that's the most important thing.
Where do people get your book and maybe follow you, social media, websites, all that sort of stuff?
Sure. I'm on Instagram mostly at Wendie Trubow, MD. And we have a podcast called Feel Freaking Amazing, because that's what we believe in. And the book is the easiest way to get it. So we have a website called drwendie.com where you can get the book, but it's easiest to get it on Amazon. And I would highly recommend don't just type in Dirty Girl, because Amazon is not going to read your mind that you're looking for the detox book. Amazon will give you the majority of what people type in when they're looking for Dirty Girl. So just type in Dirty Girl Trubow, Dirty Girl Detox. That'll get you there. And then I do have a free gift for the audience, which is drwendie.com/gift, which is a quiz to understand how toxic you are. Chapter 1 of the book to see, do we vibe? Do you like my style? It's kind of like talking to me. So if you don't like this interview, don't buy the book. Don't do it. And then it's also a guide so you can start leveling up and get healthier. It's a guide to cleaning up your life. So that's all at that site.
There you have it, folks. Dr. Wendie Trubow in her book, Dirty Girl. And I think it's a great idea for people to get this. The holiday season's coming up. There's going to be a lot of toxicity happening. And then the new year comes and everybody gets on the program. So why not add? And it's a great title. I love the title of the book. And if nothing else, it will spawn a lot of conversation over the holidays should people pick this up and give it to your favorite friend. The Dirty Girl book by Dr. Wendie Trubow. Thanks for joining us. We'll put all the show notes, and thank you for the gift. We'll put that in there. Take the quiz, folks. A quiz is something that is not a pass or fail. It is an idea to increase awareness to where you might be and where you could potentially become, and provide some solutions for that. So insight where you're at. So you can't go anywhere if you don't know where you are. So find out where you are, take the quiz, buy the book. In fact, buy a couple of copies, give them out to your friends, and start a conversation around this, and maybe join a toxic team together as you detox forever with some friends in the coming year. Thanks for joining us, Wendie, and thank you for listening to all our listeners around the world. I'm Wendie Lightheart from Bioptimizers. This is the Awesome Health Podcast. If you like it, give us a like. You can subscribe, or you can share it with your friends. We really appreciate it as it helps us reach more and more people. Thanks so much for joining in. Take care. We'll see you soon.
At Bioptimizers, our mission is to fix digestion. And a cornerstone of digestion is gut flora. P3OM is our patented probiotic formula. In fact, we call it the Navy SEALs of probiotics. You see, strong proteolytic or protein digesting activity is paramount to having a healthy gut flora. And of course, P3OM provides that. The good news is, unlike weaker probiotics, P3OM survives the digestion process. What it does is it basically multiplies the good guys while protecting you against pathogens, or what some people call the bad guys. P3OM really helps to rebuild your digestion. And what that allows you to do is to maximize nutrient uptake, energy, and metabolism. To find out more of how P3OM can help you, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.